Well, hi everyone. This is a new experiment. We're going to try recording a bit of learning a new piece from scratch. So it's just an idea that's come off the top of my head, and we're going to go with, right off the top of my head, a Liszt Etude. I'm thinking of the Transcendental Etude number 2. I think here are the Liszt Transcendental Etudes. Yup. So here we go. Transcendental Etude number 2. I picked this one because, I was thinking of number 5, and I thought number 5, that's a really difficult one. So, and this one I will admit that I have taken a little sneak look at it in the past, but long ago and not really. So it's not something I've ever really worked on at all. I might have tried to play through it a couple of times. But it looks like something that's not so hard. So doing this sort of thing is really experimental because it takes so much time to learn a piece. It's not something that happens overnight. Ideas come, they come after, as things get assimilated, ideas of how to practice it, ideas of how to play it, musical ideas, they come over time. So it's not something that's always right there. It's also kind of hard to say how you should practice something because everyone's at a different place. So, but anyway, here goes. This is, so usually what I would do, if I'm going to start learning something, I'll read through it at least once. So here we go. Either slow or fast or whatever, just to read it and look at all the notes. So. Okay, so here we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Is that right? That is right. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Often I try to play some rhythmic things, so this should probably be 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Now, either I would play through the whole piece or I would be like, let's try that a few times. So for the heck of it, 1. So, okay, so here's the first thing I notice is that the second eighth note has to be placed pop, 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 pop. Otherwise it sounds like, which it isn't, it's da, 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 da. So that, I would just have to look for a second, so, and 3 and 1. I'm just not sure where the change comes. Repetition, isn't that like some quote, repetition is the mother of skill or success or something like that? This really does truly apply to practice. So it's just something that you have to do again and again. I would not be satisfied with what I just did. You have to always think about, how can I make it better? What can I improve? So I was just thinking the accents. So again, we have this, and now we don't have that accent on the next bar because we go all the way to the end. So musically, we can work on something also here. So we have this. If this is not really a complicated passage at all, but again, I would probably come back to it in a day or two or a week or even a week after working on it every day and say, I completely missed something else in here, that this is important, this needs to be brought out, something I just didn't notice. And I could look at that and try to find it now, see if there's something maybe like balance between the two hands. But I can't think of anything now, and probably this should be, yeah. Okay, we move on. This is really not the hardest etude, so this is a good one to do this experiment with. But everything feels easy when starting to learn it, and then after a while you realize it's much more complicated than you thought. Usually, like after working on it for at least a week. Fingering is one of the things that's probably the most of a nuisance, and you have to find out right away what are you doing, because if you just do anything every time, then it's almost like a waste of time. You're never really like repeating it with the right fingers. So, and sometimes it's a pain because you don't know which fingering to use, or you're not able to come up with fingerings and different possibilities. But that's a skill that you get better at, especially as you're open to trying different fingerings that are proposed to you by a colleague or teacher, or hopefully not what's in the book, because fingerings in the book not always very good, but it depends on the book. So would I do this? I obviously can't really hold this E to the end. I could because I had big hands, but it's not realistic. So do you do 5, 5, 5, or 5, 2, 3, or 5, 4, 5? That feels kind of good, 5, 4, 5. I think I would try to. That is a big interval. That's a fourth. I would try to, since I'm able to do it, I would try to do at least the B while holding the E. Because this is... So if I was really lazy, I would just go on now without deciding what to put as a fingering. But again, that's really where this comes, is coming to make that decision, say, I'm going to do it this way. 5, 5, 5 isn't so bad either. Okay, so I decide I'll do it with 5, 5, 5. And I don't really feel like writing 5, 5, 5 in the score, but usually what I'll do is be really open that I'm deciding to use this fingering now, and tomorrow, if I don't like it, I change it. So just write it down so you have it, your decision is made, and most of the time you come back and you look at it and say, really, I put that? It's not how I would do it. That's not the easiest thing. Sometimes you play something very slow and a fingering makes a lot of sense, and then you realize that once you get it up to speed, it doesn't work anymore. Sometimes after working on a passage for a while, I'll realize that I have the notes and the technique is not there. And the technique will actually take days. Again, it could take really a week if I'm working on it every day to really install it so that it becomes part of an automated motorized process. So here... better. So I just had to think about it, you know. Usually with these sort of things, this is something I haven't talked about yet in videos, but when you have these things that go or whatever, it's usually it's like swimming, doing the doggy swim in the water, but backwards. So you see, you're always going forward. was doing. It came quite naturally, but I have to find that. So there's some curve in here where the wrist needs to be flexible. There's some wheel in some place. I like this one. Coming up here. So I think it's towards those first beats and accents. This is starting here, higher, and here, and then here. So I have a mirror here actually, which is interesting. I can show you the mirror because I can see what I'm doing. I find that very appealing. So that's what it looks like. Let me just make sure that's okay. Yeah. Maybe that's even better. So that's what I would do here. So I'm thinking right now, is there a way to do something in the right hand? It should just help. Technique is so that you can play it better and easier, and that it feels better. So it should always feel good, right? It's not to make things more complicated. It should make it easier to play it, and it should feel right. So if I'm gonna go deeper into this, I'm not doing it all what I said I would do and play through the whole piece, but that's okay. I would just take the time to play very slowly so I can feel myself rest in all the keys. I want to find some way of playing it that feels good, physically feels like I'm well installed. You can think of a time when you played something that you knew very, very well, that you worked on for maybe even something you worked on over years and put aside and forgotten and relearned a few times. Just how good it feels when you, something that could be really complicated, but it's easy to you, how that feels, and try to go there as soon as possible with this. Because essentially all we're doing is we're just putting ourselves on some of these 88 keys. And sometimes we're playing 2 at a time, 4 at a time. It doesn't matter. So we're moving from one to the other. It starts to make sense the more and more pieces you learn. Now, how does this go? So now I just have to, that's the left hand. This is kind of like the beginning, and now I'm completely lost because I don't know how it goes. So I would have to take really time to read the notes. So usually when I'm in a situation like this, I like to place the rhythm more and more because so many times it's upside down. Maybe that's also, so okay, 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3. That's not right. There's some notes. That's a G sharp. So I'm still pretty confused about this part. Okay, because we have this ninth here, that's an E. Is it really? So, if that makes you feel better, when the notes are that low, I'm often not sure what it is. See, C, A, G-F-E, that's an E. I have to check. So I always tell my students, they're like, yeah, I know the note when they're learning to read, you know, complain about not being able to read on the lines. It's normal. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I've been playing for over 25 years and I still don't know them immediately by heart. So that starts to make sense. Now we can try to, like, again, work with the rhythm, because the rhythm helps it make sense. So I have a little block there in that second bar. Here. So what I'll do is move everything down to a tempo where that block doesn't exist anymore. Sounds perfect. So try to find that tempo where up, now it's smooth, and then work from there to get it back up. Because a lot of it is just listening, is being able to hear in your ear how this is supposed to sound. It's still not clear in my ear how this is supposed to sound. So just doing the same thing again, I won't even play it faster because I don't think I'll be able to do it without stopping. I'll try to go a little faster. And I can't do it. So again, I can't go that fast. It's just not there yet. So I can work on it again. I can work on it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or I can just leave it and say I'll come back to it tomorrow, which is fine. You know, that's really how these things get learned. Okay, so here I'm just making a mistake here. So it's just barely there, you know? There's not much more I can do with this. I'm not even sure that was right. So I would just leave it and come back to it the next day. Okay, so what do we have here? Interesting. This is kind of, you can tell this is a bit of a more technically challenging passage. Not even that hard, it seems, but it's very clear from the get-go that technique is of utmost importance here. If you're just trying to do this with fingers, good luck. So my mission now is to find out, well, what is that? How should I be playing this? So I'm going to try to go in when there's two notes. Again, the rhythm bump, and 2, and 3, and 1. I don't know, it seems like there must be some wheel here. Not really, because this is more of a rotation. But it doesn't really work because so I would do something like that. This is more of a wheel. We'll get to that after. So that to me seems to be the right thing to do. Is as a general rule, when you have two notes played at the same time, it's this way: in, comes up. Leggero, right? So I'm playing it very loud, and it's probably not sure it gets that loud, although there is a forte here. Okay, so we won't get too carried on. Probably something more along that dynamic. So, very easy to go too fast in a passage like this. For me anyway. So I would probably... practice it like that. It's not very clear. And these are not very precise, right? So, okay, if these aren't precise, what I would do is this. I have the impression this is going to help a lot. So what I'm doing is, when I double this, I make sure it's still in the front. And then I have, you could also do this. That could help too. Another thing that helps is to do similar to this, but let's go, instead of half beats, we'll do whole beats. If you do this, and like when I see that I missed something, it was pretty accurate except for one place, well, that's good that I see that there is, it means I'm working on something when I'm doing this. Eventually I would try to do 2 beats, which might be strange. So you can tell there's something to work on there. Because that seems to me like a very effective thing. I'm just doing 3 of them at a time. And then eventually I would try to do 6. And then again, maybe tomorrow we'll have a completely different idea. As the technique gets assimilated, different ideas come on how to practice it based on where the problem is, you know. If it's a problem of articulation, of technique, of precision. So that has to be done. Okay, then we have this. This seems like a complicated arpeggio until you know what it is. So try to find the pattern. There's usually a pattern. So we have this. Let's see if we have that again. We do. So F with an F before, yeah, that's our pattern. That's the pattern. Although it's different fingering. Just do it very slowly, many times. I'll let you know how that goes. I would also stop at that 3rd, like that. Not very precise. That seems like a good way of practicing it. That's a way of doing it. Again, we could work on that for a long time. So, if you're practicing really well, you'll find that there is pretty much no exception whatsoever. There's every single thing you do can be worked on. You know, I feel like we're just scratching the surface here. You know, there's probably more curves in this too. This is interesting, right? has to be shaped. So there's really nothing that you can not work on. We're really taking every single, maybe not every single element, but as many as possible, and finding what we can, how we can practice it. How do we do this with that? So this is a bum 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 bum. That's kind of a difficult thing in this piece. So probably takes really a great deal of relaxation in the arm, and so that this wheel can go just as needed. If I'm missing it, to me, I'm not really making it better. I'm just working too fast. But it's good to know exactly where is the problem, if it's consistent. Which it seems to be pretty consistently here. So I would go something like that. And again, it'll take all week. Oh boy. It really does do that. Okay, so this, I'm not placing the rhythm properly. It's just, that will need more work, especially as far as I feel like fingering in the left hand. Granted, Liszt writes 2/4 everywhere, so let's go with that for now. Technique. Okay, so it gives me an idea. So far I feel kind of like it's not going to be so bad, although having done so much, and by now I'm pretty impatient and I just feel like going further, and reading more of the piece. This is different, yeah? This sounds musically very different from what we've had before. Okay, so again, I would have to read it slowly, one note at a time, because I just don't know what the notes are. Well, it's very tedious, and I don't want to bore you with this. I'm kind of wondering what to do with this video also, to how much of this we're going to film. Because of course I can work a lot. I can work a lot behind the scenes, but my goal in this video is to show you exactly what I'm doing to learn the piece. So, so again, rhythm. Yum, bum, bum, bum. To play the hands separate. I'm just plain trying to go too fast. That's the same thing. So again, we'll come back to it tomorrow, and it'll probably be a lot easier. beautiful. This is why I wanted to do this piece. So that's always not quite. It seems to be alternating between. So try to find patterns. It will speed up the learning process. Again, I'm kind of, since it's the first time I look at it, I really want to get through the whole thing. And I don't think I'll be able to do that on this video. It's going to be too long. That wasn't right. Yeah, so, okay, how would we work on this? I would just do it very slow until I understand it, because I still don't understand it. If you're playing it and it sounds surprising what the notes are, then you don't understand it. So you can also do that makes more sense to me. So it's starting to make sense. Now this part is pretty cool. It's an F. Again, I would have to check. C, A, F. Okay, so let's just skim through it. Then we have the and then we come back to it. Those are really hard. I feel like that's the one thing that makes you lower the tempo of this piece, is because of these. That's really not easy. We'll see how that goes over the week. Now this part I can remember practicing probably when I was 16 or something like that. This is fun. This is really fun. You can tell this part is really fun. We're going to have fun doing this. That's the same thing. So there we have it. That's our first little practice on this Liszt Transcendental Étude number 2. Yeah, I think we're going to go we're gonna try to film as much of the practice as possible. So I'm definitely gonna film the next practice on this piece and see how that goes. I feel like I only really worked on, you know, the first half at most. Spent a lot of time at the beginning, and by the time as I got later, I have to leave actually in like 5 minutes. So I'm a little like thinking about time and how long this video is, and also just getting impatient because I want to get through the piece. So until next time, this has been a little session of a practice experiment.